We've talked about vision, journey, culture, and results, and the importance of going through the wheel, going through the paradigm in that order. But what happens when you go backwards? Is that okay? Is that ever a good idea? In this episode, Ryan and I talk about the difference between redlining and greenlining through the wheel.
Make work not suck. Our podcast that talks about exactly that. Our process, vision, journey, culture, and results. We present real-world business solutions that make the difference. Our goal is to make work not suck. Hosted by Ryan Hodges, co-host Daniel Steere. Join us each episode and make work not suck. Welcome to the Make Work Not Suck podcast.
Welcome back to the Make Work Not Suck podcast. Ryan, we've talked about vision, journey, culture, results many times in many different ways, but we've always gone through the wheel in that order: vision, journey, culture, results. And we've even talked about how important it is to always start with vision. Can you go backwards? What happens if you do? Or maybe just say, what happens if you don't go through the wheel the right way?
So there's rotation, forward and backwards. So
Okay.
let's start with going backwards. That's vision,
Shouldn't
results.
we start with going forward?
No, I'm going to start with going backwards. I'm going to start
great.
with the wrong way first.
Good.
Because there is a time you do go backwards through the wheel.
Oh,
So
okay.
you got vision, results, culture, and journey, right?
Sure.
So most of the time when we're problem solving, we look whatever triggers it, and we realize we haven't achieved the vision or the goal we were trying to achieve, right?
Okay.
Something feels wrong or we know is off, right? So we look at the results. We look at the P&L. We look at the metrics. We look at, the things the tangibles we can see.
We look at my paycheck and it's like, this is not big enough.
That works too. And then the first thing we like to do is we like to blame.
Oh,
We like to blame people. So usually we start looking for fault in people,
okay.
and we very rarely make it to the process.
So let me ask, is this just vision result people that do this, or do people oriented to any part of the framework tend to go vision and then jump to result?
Most people will go vision, result, culture. There is a percentage of the population that will go vision, result, journey, culture.
Okay.
But there is a little bit of a slant, but for the most part, most of the time, because we go to the tangible, because
Sure.
typically a process, unless it's like a piece of machinery or something like that broke.
Yeah,
but
that's
typically
easier to see.
typically like in a professional services or services industry, especially if you're working like with intangibles, like with software or accounting or legal or something like that, an intangible service, you go to the person because your first inclination is somebody screwed up.
Right.
And so that's not necessarily always bad, but the problem is when you're always going backwards through that. And we love negativity as humans. We remember negative things 6-1 from bad to good, right?
Wow.
So we keep going down and we keep going back. Very rarely do we go, okay, Daniel did the process wrong, and then we go, okay, well, let's fix it. Good companies or people that understand it, and this is kind of going through like an OODA loop or a retrospective in Agile Scrum, is you work backwards through it and you'll figure out what it is, and then you go, okay, how are we going to fix it? Okay, how do you fix it? And the way you always move forward is you go, okay, what is the vision we're trying to achieve? What is the process, the journey we're going there? What's the culture we need to achieve, and the results? So that's the flywheel effect, good to great, right? Getting the flywheel moving.
Okay, so
and
let me
spinning up.
stop you there. So you evaluate it going backwards. So did we hit the result? No. Oftentimes, to your point, we want to blame, well, it's Ryan's fault that we didn't achieve the result. And so we just go beat up Ryan, right?
Yeah.
Healthy companies, I think, go to that next step and look at the process. And then to fix it, so that's how you diagnose it, but to fix it, you go forwards?
Forward. Well, let me hit a couple things.
Okay.
So typically we go backwards through the wheel when we're diagnosing.
Okay.
Because we go from the known to the unknown. We did not hit a vision. We didn't achieve a goal. So then we go from the tangible to the intangible.
Yep.
And usually we stop at the human because that's where we start fighting. Once you get to the other side of this, and again, this is I'll talk about something called Redline, Greenline in a minute. there are circumstances where you have to choose which is the best way to go to problem solve. Because if you think about, if you go through the wheel, you can go through the wheel counter or clockwise to problem solve as well. What was the vision? What was the process? What were the people? What were the KPIs? And when you're aware of this, when you start with the vision to the process, usually you start talking about the problem in terms of we built the wrong environment, we built the wrong process, and then the people come in.
Right.
Which you actually get traction first. When you go backwards through the wheel in an unhealthy environment, that's the shame, blame, I forget the other word.
Shame, blame, and fear.
Shame, blame, and fear, right. When you go forwards through the wheel in problem solving, usually you've made it through a process and you've identified a problem in a process and a KPI because
Right.
they correlate.
Right. It's almost more of the, did I give Ryan everything he needed to be successful?
Right.
And if no, then I can't blame Ryan for that. I've got to fix the, was he trained? Did he have the tools? Blah, blah, blah. Right.
Right.
And so I'm sure Ryan would appreciate me asking that question before I just lay into him, but I don't see most organizations doing that.
Right. And in some cases, they really are like culture-based KPIs where you do go result to culture.
Okay.
Like if you blatantly violated a policy.
Sure.
Or it's like you're on video camera stealing or something
Sure,
like that.
you steal
Like
from
those
your
are-
employer.
tho-
That was
those
pretty
are-
easy.
Where you go that way. When you're going
That
the other way,
conversation pretty much stops at culture.
pretty much
is-
stops the culture.
Right, there
Like
isn't-
you blatantly just okay. And then as far as problem solving, one of the fallacies we make when we're problem solving is we start going backwards through the wheel to solve the problem. And very rarely, there are few exceptions, very rarely do you go backwards through the wheel to solve a problem. And that ultimately because we have an idea and we're trying to expect a result and then we put expectations on people. And because usually when we go backwards through the wheel, we stop at culture, we never get to the process.
Yeah.
And every company, I've never walked in the door of a company and they're like, oh, we've got too much process. We don't need any more process. Their number one complaint is, we don't have enough process. People don't follow the process. Yeah, because you have a vision and you expected a result and you told the people to do it. You told the people to achieve a result.
Right.
And so the reason why you always go forward through it is it forces you to go to think through the process.
Yeah.
Because when you think through the journey, begin with the end in mind. What is the end destination I'm trying to get to? And you walk it all the way back to now with the measurements in between, the people that need to do it, et cetera. You find that, one, your process is simpler. Two, your KPIs are fewer because you don't need as many. And three, your people understand the process. You get the understand and followed by all.
Right.
Well, if you don't put the understand and followed by all in part of the process, then how do you expect people to be held accountable to it?
Sure.
So then let me talk about Redline, Greenline.
Oh, actually, before you do that, I've actually been in a situation where I worked for a guy who just went results culture. Like, never vision, never process, just results culture.
Results culture.
Yeah, I got new role, and he basically said, here's the number I need you to hit. Like, here's the revenue target that I need you to hit. And it was like 105% of the market. Like, there was more than was actually possible. And I was like, I can't, like, that's not possible. And he's just like, this is your job, make it happen.
See, I would almost argue that's still vision.
You would go,
results.
you think that's vision?
It's vision. It's that
It's
vision
result. Right.
slant expecting a result.
Yeah, I don't think he cared what I sold in that moment. I think I just had to hit the result.
Well, and when you go vision result, you don't care about the culture or the process.
Yeah, no, he didn't.
You have an expectation, you expect it to be met.
Yeah.
And you don't care.
Regardless of what reality says.
And I don't care what you do to get there, just don't break any laws. Which means there's no culture, it's anarchy.
Right.
So I just expect the result. I have a result I know I won, I expect you to hit it. Vision result.
Yeah.
And so let's talk Redline, Greenline for a minute.
Okay.
So if you can imagine this thing that kind of looks like a fish. And I have to say, I didn't create this. This actually came from somebody I heard in a Vistage speak years ago. I've tried to figure out who the guy was. I don't remember. I can't take credit, but I don't remember who the name was.
Credit to unnamed Vistage speaker.
Yes.
Put it in the show notes.
There we go. So you imagine this thing, it kind of looks like a fish. And you've got a horizontal line that represents time. And you got, the beginning on the left side of that line is now. and somewhere down the road of that is the future. And you got this line that arcs up and then back down. It starts at the line, it arcs up, and then it crosses the line and continues.
Crosses the midline and heads south.
South, right? And then on the other side, we'll call that one, that's red. And on the other side of that, we've got a green line that's inverse. So it goes below the line, it crosses at the same zero crossing mark, and then goes up to the north. It goes up.
Keeps going up.
Keeps going up.
So you got the red line goes up, the green line goes down, and they kind of mirror each other?
They mirror each other, so it kind of looks like a fish.
Okay.
And then what you've got is when those two arcs are cresting, one's on the low end and one's on the high end, that is what we call perceived value.
Okay.
So there's some point in time, and it's every decision you make, whether you realize it or not, it's the consequence, right? Every decision has a consequence, good or bad.
Yep.
Right? So when you make a decision and you decide to do what I call a red line decision, you end up, it has a high perceived value, and that's at the point of when it crests.
And when it peaks and then starts coming back down.
And then as time goes along, your actual value is below where you started. And what that is my stepdad used to tell me, he used to call it, that's when you half-ass it.
Okay.
And so when I was doing things as a kid, he would we had this metal shop and we'd sweep the floor, or I'd have to sweep the floor. If I didn't get the floor really clean, let me start with this. I forgot to add this part. You take motor oil and you put it in wood shavings and you shape it in a big trash bag, and then you dump it out on the floor, and it picks up all the particles, all the shavings and stuff. So it gets caught up. So you throw all the stuff on the floor, you make a mess to clean the mess up. Well, if I swept the floor, I may have gotten all the sawdust up, but if he went on the floor and he put his hand across it and there's still dirt on it, I didn't clean it well enough. And he'd throw it
back down again.
And it wasn't just clean up that spot, it was do the whole floor again.
Right.
Right? And so what the lesson was behind this is if you just did it right the first time,
it would actually take less time.
It would take less time, but because you rushed through it, it seemed like you got it done fast. But in reality, because you had to resweep the entire warehouse 3 times, it took.
I think every parent who has ever had any child of any age is understanding this moment right now.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
If you had just done it right the first time, it would have taken you much less time and effort.
If you didn't hide all the clothes under the bed,
right,
you wouldn't have gotten the punishment.
I wouldn't have been asking you to clean your room 3 times.
Right.
You could have gone outside and played with your friends.
Right. Well, but in business, this happens.
We do that all the time.
We do that all the time. And what happens is this is where the sales guy, no, not a knock on salespeople, because I love salespeople.
Salespeople are people too.
Salespeople are people too. But this is where they promise something to the customer.
Oh, yeah.
And production has to deal with the fallout.
Yeah.
And it's that you get the high fives, they get the commission.
Sure.
And they look like they did awesome. The sales numbers are up. But then when you look at the P&L on the backside, you look at the churn or the LTV of the customer or the average sale value.
Or the CSAT scores.
The CSAT scores. You see they're down in the tank. And what everybody does is they go look at production, go, why can't you serve the customer? Which then leads back into, we start going through the result.
Right.
Where does the result shine? In production.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do? We start blaming production instead of evaluating the journey. What caused the red line?
Yeah.
So that's just one example. And of course, this happens across the organization. This happens, individually, even the visionary, right? Visionary's got 1 million ideas a day.
Right.
They come in and the worst is when they go to one of those peer groups and a speaker comes in.
Yep. I've seen that.
And the speaker gives them this great analogy or this great tool or thing.
Right.
And then the next day they come in and they're like, we're doing this company-wide.
Right. Today it's Six Sigma, and tomorrow it's EOS, and then it's Scrum. And every week it's a different methodology, none of which are bad if you were to stick with it long enough.
Well, if you were to actually, what's the vision for this? What's the journey?
Right.
What's the culture? So what a red line is when you go vision results. I have an idea, expect an outcome. But then what happens is because you don't align the culture and the journey, then it falls apart. And because we want results now, we want action, go, do. I want results, results. We redline.
Explain align the culture, because that sounds good. I don't know what that looks like.
The people actually know what you're requesting of them to do.
Okay.
as opposed to just setting an expectation. Like they understand the value behind it, the process, the way to do it. This doesn't mean you have to spell it out in crayon.
Sure.
It just means you have to have enough respect to what was it you or someone else that was telling me the other day where it was I think it was do you respect your people? No, what was
that was the story I shared
you
about
shared that
about the
Corvette.
guy who was cranking out new SOPs every day, and one of his core values was respect. And I asked him how his values were influencing how he rolled this out, and he had no idea what I was talking about.
That was a red line.
Sure.
Because he had this idea and expected this outcome, but the negative, the actual value at the end of that was
Probably worse.
disrespecting his people.
Yeah, I
which
think
means-
he probably lost some people in the process because they were so frustrated that the rules changed every day. They just threw up their hands and left.
Right. So that actual value was really low because it was disrespect, turnover, etc. Okay, that's red line.
So
let's go.
That's the red line.
That's the arc up with the arc down red line. Green line is the inverse of that. Green line is when you take the time and energy to think through what is the vision. You have a clearly defined vision, and this doesn't have to be like a 14-page book. This could just be simply a one-liner, two-liner little thing. This is the goal or objective we're trying to achieve, and then when you're going further down that line, you're getting into what is the journey, the expectations, the experience, how we're going to train the people, etc. But at that point, at that perceived value mark line, it seems like it's very perceived low value. And a lot of executives or high energetic people, they're like, it's not done yet. Why isn't it done yet? This should already been done. If Bob would have done this, it would already been done. Why isn't this done? Oh, what is it? Good or perfect is the enemy of good.
Is that when they get halfway through the project and they cut the funding to go fund something else?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because it doesn't look like they're actually making progress.
Doesn't look like they're actually making progress. Now again, that can be a different one. But when everybody's going through the motion, you're coming out that other side. Now here's the fallacy and the hard part about going the green line is when you're in the bottom of the trough of that point, that perceived value is low.
Mm-hmm.
That's like going into the deep dark tunnel, and you've made it far enough in the tunnel that you can't see the light behind you,
And you can't see the light in front of you.
and you can't see the light in front of you, and that's what I call the dark void.
Okay.
And this is why having an aligned the health of
Yep.
the organization is key, or even of the team. Even if it's just a two-man team, there's health. And
Yeah,
alignment
there's
there,
still
right?
alignment there.
Is in the dark void because that perceived value is low. That's typically where people bail out.
Yeah.
Or what they'll do is if you can imagine like you're in space, and again you can't see Earth anymore, and you can't see the planet you're going to, but there's these little asteroids. And you cling to one because it's something that's comforting, right?
Right.
Like I know where this is.
The only thing you've
I
got
know
to
this
hold on
island,
to.
right? And so you cling to that, and you never work your way through.
Right.
That's in itself another red line, but we'll keep going on the green line. Is when you get to that bottom, that's when it's its hardest.
Yeah.
And that's when you have to, that's believe and power through. But when you get through the other side of that green line, the actual value is higher than the value you started with.
Right.
And when you can just green line, that's growth. And
Right.
it's not by mistake. It's by intentional.
Right.
It's on purpose. And the thing is there's times in businesses where you have to redline.
Sure.
Not every decision is a bad decision. Not every decision is a red line decision. What you can do, if you're very strategic about this, is there are cases where you have to just, you know what, Daniel, I need you to, this is a red line. I know it's a red line. I'm going to need you to just pick up the phone and just tell the customer they get whatever they want
Right.
because we need to save it. Oh, by the way, production, here's how we're going to green line this to prevent it from happening again. Now,
Oh, okay.
you can simultaneously green line and red line, but your green line is exponentially more complex than the red line because you're promising a customer whatever they want, right?
Right.
Now, to compensate for that is I have to adjust into the processes doing whatever you're promising that customer and preventing it from happening again.
Yeah.
So I have to do twice the work.
That gives me a headache just thinking about it.
But it can be done.
Right.
That's where a lot of people feel like they don't want to be boxed in. Like, everything has to be a green line. I gotta wait again. I gotta wait. I don't want this.
Right.
We
Gotta follow the process
gotta follow
again.
the process. This process sucks. I hate.
Right.
There are times you have to redline.
So I want to take the red line, green line analogy out of an organization and into a different context that's probably easier for people to understand.
Okay.
So let's talk about weight,
Weight.
physical health,
Oh, we're gonna
and
go with
weight.
that. We're going with the health
We're-
analogy
We're,
again.
we're going with the health
Physical
analogy,
health.
right?
Okay.
The red line is, oh gosh, I need to lose 10 pounds. I'm not going to eat anything for 2 days. I'm going to wear one of those black bag suits that like makes it 200 degrees inside, and go walk around outside. And amazingly enough, just about any of us could lose 10 pounds in 24 hours to 36 hours if you really had to. Now, the problem is that's all water weight.
Yes.
You were catastrophically dehydrated. But you can do it. It can be done. That's the red line. It is perceived value. The scale numbers come down.
Yes.
But you were in for a really bad day shortly thereafter, right? You were going to be in a worse place than the green line.
Well, not only is your health going to deteriorate because you did that.
Yeah, you jacked up your system.
You're basically going to gain all the weight back
course
as
you
soon as you start drinking water because you put yourself, assuming you didn't put yourself in a hospital,
Right.
Which there's hospital bills or
Right,
whatever,
right.
Now
Now you
whatever.
got bigger problems than just an extra 10
Yeah,
pounds.
you pass out, you hit your head, and snap
Right.
your neck. Then
Right.
but
Or worse, you do like permanent damage to your
your organs
your metabolism.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you can permanently jack some things up there. Whereas the green line is, and I've seen this with myself and with so many other people, like the green line is eating healthy, going to the gym, like all the things that we know we're supposed to do, but so few of us actually do. And I have actually seen people gain weight, like people that are trying to lose weight, gain weight in the process. And right. And so that's what I think of when I hear you talk about that green line that starts at the midpoint and goes down. It's like I'm moving backwards from where I want to go.
because you're gaining muscle in that beginning, which weighs more than fat, but you
Right.
have to burn.
Right.
burn to burn.
So you got to stick with it long enough. And this is where everybody quits, right? It's somewhere around that 4 to 6 week mark that you hit that low point, and then it starts getting better. But most of us don't stick with it.
Yep.
We quit. And so I don't know if it's if you halfway green line, is that a red line? I don't know. But I think that might be an easier analogy for us to think about is sometimes things got to get worse before they can get better. And that's usually the green line. And if there's a way to get instant results, be suspicious because that's probably not sustainable in the long term.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting on this one is a lot of people want to look at the red line, green line as they're making the decision.
Okay.
But the reality is the judgment of is it red line or green line is not until after time has passed, the perceived value versus the actual value, because you might think you're going through the green line for that for like your weight loss example there.
Sure.
but
I lost
then-
10 pounds in 2 days.
Well, let's go the workout route, right?
Okay.
Like we're working out, but I'm gaining. I'm going the wrong direction. I bail out.
Sure.
Well, that I might have thinking I'm going green line, but what I really did is I redlined, and only time can tell if you really red or green because it's all about the follow through.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you put it back into the wheels perspective, when you go from vision to journey to culture, you haven't produced results yet because you still have to go through.
You got to go all the way
you
through
have
to get to
produce.
the results.
And so if you start, you might go, oh, I'm going to green line this. I'm going to start with vision and go to journey, and then you bail out.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't teach the people. You didn't teach the process. You invented a process, and I can't tell you how many companies I've seen this. Somebody types up this process, and they just hand it to people, and they go, oh, problem solved.
Right. I'm done.
I wrote the process. There's a procedure for that. It's out on Confluence or Tetra or the Wiki or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And then nobody knows to look for it. And then when they open it up, they don't know what to do with it.
Yep.
And so people go, oh yeah, we came up with a vision, we came up with a process. Like no, you actually have to apply it all the way through.
Right.
And
You got to train the people. You got to tell them that it's out there. You've got to show them how to do it. And only then should you expect to see any different results.
Yes. And another one is where we redline a lot is we.
So can I ask a question there?
Yeah, go ahead.
If I skip over the people, which is I've mentioned in a previous episode, it's my tendency because I'm a vision guy. So and I've learned a little bit about journey, but still not as good on the culture as I want to be. If I go vision, journey, result. Am I still redlining?
Vision, journey, result.
And I just completely skip over culture.
Well, if you're programming a automated machine that people don't touch, then maybe.
Then maybe that's a red line.
But I mean, even OpenAI, you still have to tell it context of tonality, which is culture.
Okay. So I guess I'm not really skipping over culture. I'm just bailing.
Yeah.
Right. Functionally, I'm bailing. And you're right. When I skip over the culture and I don't engage the people in the process, I never get the results I want.
Yeah.
So I'm not really jumping over it.
People are always involved somewhere.
Yeah, they are.
Until we're, in the simulation or we're all, robots. People
Right.
are still part of the equation.
Still there. All right. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I don't even remember what I was going to say now. I was on a roll with Redline, Greenline. But I mean, I think just kind of hitting it back over, again, Redline is making that perceived value, and you can see it in an organization. It's really easy to see linearly when it's like sales and marketing to another good one for marketing. We drove the leads really, really high. We drove all these leads in.
Right.
Sales didn't close them.
Were they the right leads?
Were the ICP? Did we target right? Et cetera. So there's a red line. We spent all that time, energy, and money and actually brought in crappy leads. Sales overpromised, underdelivered. Production, there's, again, you can go down finance, miscategorize things. I mean, you can do it all the way up and down the chain. But at the end of the day, to go Greenline, you have to make sure it goes through, not only through the wheel, but through the organization. If it's something synergistically through the organization,
right.
or if it's your team, you have to do it. Make sure it's the team, and that's what I was going to do. It's a little bit of a change management. We redline a lot. We have a problem. We hit a problem, and we go, ooh, let's just add another SOP. Let's add another process. And what we do is we just duct tape another process on it, and we think we're going vision, journey, culture, results, because we technically did, we grazed through it. But what we did is we really did it at the expense of the wheel at the end of the day, and we end up putting a process. And you end up with this like bastardized SOP, duct tape, cracks,
Frankenstein.
All that, right? Whereas what you really should do is, and this is where it's Greenline, is you should run, in the case that you need to make big change or even incremental change, you run everything SOP as is, status quo, while you branch off and you run parallel and you build out the process, then you test the process, and then you teach the process, all while the old process is still running parallel.
Ooh.
So you're actually doing what appears to be parallel work, but what you're doing is you're testing it. And while you're testing it, you're going through it.
Right.
You're like, okay, we need to tweak that. We missed that. We got to have this meeting, all this stuff. It takes time and energy. That's, again, Greenline. But when you've got through the testing phase and you've worked all the kinks out, again, while running the old process, and then you train the people so everybody understood, followed by all.
Right.
And then when you do the transition and actually do the crossing, it's actually really interesting because there's all these organizations I've worked with where we spend all this time here. We'll spend a quarter getting ready for all these changes. And then the day we make all the changes, everybody's like, are we doing this? We're like, we're already done. Like, what do you mean? Like, we spent all that time and energy getting ready for it, and done? Yeah. Because we did all the hard work, the change was easy. Versus what a lot of organizations do, the red line. The red line is, hey, we're going to make all these changes, go. And then because it's just cascading red lines and system failures and bugs and pissed off customers, et cetera, and sometimes it's 6 to 8 months of cleaning up the mess because you're reactionary to it.
Yeah. You didn't think through all the consequences of the change you want to make.
And all the people are feeling it, which means you're left with a negative culture, negative this.
Sure.
Here's another one, is when you redline versus Greenline. Redline is reactive. You react.
Yeah.
Greenline's proactive. You have to take the time and energy, cognitively think through it. But when you Greenline major change in an organization and you get to that zero crossing day and everybody's like, wow, you accomplished something.
Yeah, you really did. That's impressive. I've been in a lot of companies that have done that very poorly. I've seen very few examples of organizations doing that well.
And it does get very chaotic right up to the zero crossing because you're trying to get it through.
Right.
But because you're greenlining it and your urge is to redline.
Of course,
but
always.
You fight through, you greenline it at that zero crossing day and everybody, the change happens. there may be a hiccup or two,
Of course.
but when it happens way smoother than everything, the sucky that happened before,
Right.
all of a sudden work doesn't suck
Work doesn't suck so much.
because it's you know what suck looks like, you know what suck feels like.
Yep.
Because everybody
It's where we've all been for most of our careers.
right, and when you get into an organization that does it that way, and all of a sudden it's liberating,
Wow.
and now it's like, ooh. How do we get even better?
Right.
Now it becomes
Let's
almost
do
like
that again.
Let's do that again. And now that we know how to do this process, we can do it faster, more efficient. And there's I forget the law that goes with it, but once there's sometimes you take a year to do something,
Mm-hmm.
and then the next time you do it takes you 6 months. The next time you do it takes there's a point where it just gets more and more efficient because you've done it.
Right.
That it's just compound. It's like compounding interest.
Yeah.
And so the thing
But
is
it's compounding organizational
effectiveness.
Yeah.
Yes. And as you're doing that, you're aligning the health. As you're aligning the health, you're expanding the effectiveness. As you're expanding the effectiveness, you're aligning the health.
Nice.
And so that's why harmony is so important. You can't just have health. You can't just have effectiveness.
You gotta have
to
both.
both. And you have to pay attention to the rotation. And the more and more you go through that's the flywheel effect. Because once the flywheel's spinning, it doesn't just stop instantly.
Yeah.
Because it's got mass.
And it keeps the momentum going.
It keeps the momentum going. Versus this, and here's interesting is once you've got momentum and the organization itself is got that momentum and that circular motion, the second someone tries to go backwards, they're met with a lot of friction.
Yeah, they are.
And they stick out like a sore thumb, and they either quickly get in line,
or they quickly find the door.
Which is if that organization is running that flywheel like that protects the culture.
Yeah, it does. That's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Because once you have a healthy organization, it's a place that everybody wants to work at.
Yeah.
It's back to the one I talked about the other day, the guy that has the line of welders out the door.
Sure.
And you know what they do? They keep the bad welders out.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't let the toxic people in.
Yeah, that goes to the competition.
Yeah. You can have that guy. You should hire him right now. He's terrible.
And that sounds great for a manager or a leader, but as an employee.
Oh, sure. That's awesome.
You want the person that's going to work with you alongside you and not just take
you
advantage
want
of
the people that are
friction.
going to green line and minimize the red lines and go through the wheel in the right way and not try to constantly jump from vision to results.
Right. Again, that doesn't mean people don't make mistakes. We all make mistakes.
Of course.
You don't have success without failure, which is mistakes. But it's when you constantly greenline, you actually have the room for mistakes. You actually are building margin for mistakes to happen.
Right.
It goes back in your health and effectiveness
Tax. Yeah.
When you greenline and you're going through it, you have built-in margin for people to compensate for mistakes, and you still have success. But those mistakes are what happened at the bottom end of that green line. Whereas when there's no margin for mistakes and everything is held, that red line,
Everything's a fire drill.
everything's a fire drill. Everything's not good enough.
Yeah.
Everything
Working
is criticized.
nights and weekends because somebody screwed up. And yeah, describes most of my career.
So that is Redline, Greenline. I think that has been besides the methodology of the paradigm, the wheel, if you will. Redline, Greenline has probably been one of the most effective things that I've ever used. One of the most effective tools.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. I see it be really powerful working with leaders at any level to help them become the healthy and effective organization that so many of them want to be. Do you work for a Redline organization or a Greenline organization? Do you find yourself constantly fighting fires and working late nights to achieve unachievable goals? Or do you guys have the time and the space to plan and to handle unexpected events? If you feel like you're in more of a Redline organization than a Greenline organization, head to our website and look for the free resources to help.